This program was previously recorded. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Porter County Perspective. I'm your host, Madison Cary. This week, we will be talking to Denise Cary and Bessie Newkirk of the Caring Place in Valparaiso, Indiana. Welcome to the show, Denise and Bessie. Thank you for being with us today. Denise and Bessie are joining us in part today to discuss teen dating violence awareness and prevention. First, can you tell us about the Caring Place and its role in our community?
Sure. Thanks, Madison. First of all, thanks for inviting us to speak on your podcast. We're excited to start talking about this issue because the more people know about it, the more awareness is out there, the more prevention we can inspire. So my name is Denise Cary. I am the new president and CEO of the Caring Place, and I brought with me today Bessie Newkirk, who is our outreach coordinator and specifically coordinates the Amanda Forum, which is our youth dating violence prevention task force. The Caring Place is an organization that has been around for about 42 years, and we serve Porter, Lake, and Stark counties in Northwest Indiana. And we provide 24-hour emergency shelter for survivors of domestic violence. And we also focus in our mission on prevention and awareness and outreach to the community.
Next, please tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you each do for the Caring Place.
Right. Well, I am, as I said, the president and CEO. I just started in October in this role for the Caring Place, but I have worked with the Caring Place as a volunteer or as the youth outreach coordinator, a dating violence task force for, over a decade, for quite some time. So it was a natural progression for me. I came out of the education world. I was a teacher and an educational consultant, and then also worked in nonprofit on the side. Bessie worked with me as my assistant youth outreach coordinator when I was the youth outreach coordinator. So I very happily bumped her up into the outreach coordinator role when I took on the president CEO role. So, Bessie, I'll turn it over to you to tell a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so as Denise said, I am the outreach coordinator now. I worked with the Amanda Forum the last 3 years as Denise's assistant. Prior to that, I was also in education in Chicago and ran an after-school prevention, dropout prevention program. Prior to that, getting my teaching license, I was actually involved with the Caring Place. I worked on the crisis line in the shelter as a client assistant. So I've always had, a connection to the Caring Place as well. Always had a passion to be able to do the work that we do.
How long has the Caring Place been in operation, and will you share with us the impact that it has made on families in our area?
Sure. The Caring Place was created back in, about 42 years ago in 1978, I believe it was. So we've been around quite some time providing shelter and support and advocacy for Northwest Indiana. For example, last year alone in 2020, the Caring Place answered over 2,354 crisis calls. And that's about 6 crisis calls every single day of the year. So we provide emergency shelter for people trying to escape that situation and advocate. We provide legal advocacy and support, financial support, all of those sorts of things for community members. And then we work really hard on upstream prevention as well, because the more information we get out there, the more we can help people maybe find strategies to deal with this in a positive way. But the crisis calls from 2017, in 2017, we answered 1,500 crisis calls. Okay. In 2019, we answered 2,078, and in 2020, we're up again several hundred to the 2,354 crisis calls. So the need is just increasing every year.
What are some of the top priorities of the Caring Place?
Our services that we offer are safe shelter, of course. That's number one. Providing a safe shelter for people to get to so that they can regroup and then find their way out of a situation and find their way forward, moving forward. Victim advocacy, legal advocacy, filing protective orders and those sorts of things. we have a local judge who actually will come help people fill out that paperwork correctly. Because you're in a high-stress crisis situation, paperwork is stressful anytime, particularly governmental paperwork. And so we provide advocacy and support to help people fill out those forms. Sexual assault support, domestic violence support, community awareness and prevention, and youth outreach. Those are our key services that we offer.
Can you share with us some of the first signs of domestic abuse?
Sure, we're going to turn that over to Bessie.
Okay, so, one of the first things that you look at is not always what is obvious. Many people, assume right away that, okay, I need to see bruising or see them trying to cover up bruising or making up excuses for these injuries. And many times that's just not the case. A lot of the time that you'll see these signs emerge from those experiencing some form of abuse and domestic violence are those things like seeing their personality changing, seeing their self-esteem getting lowered, depression, anxiety, seeing them really withdraw from their family and friends. You start to see that they're not really coming around anymore, always needing to check in with their partner, and kind of getting anxious if they aren't able to get to their phone and check in. Those are big signs that something is probably going on. They may be getting controlled by that partner. And again, you just kind of see that self-esteem getting lowered. So those are some big signs to look for, in their personality as far as if they're experiencing some form of abuse.
Absolutely. And one of the first things you'll notice, as Bessie said, and one of the chief forms of coercive control is isolating that person from friends, from family, and just getting them away from their support network.
If someone we know is experiencing signs of domestic abuse, what advice can you offer to those who are concerned about their loved ones?
Well, I would say first off, approach them in a way that they're not feeling like they're being judged for being in that relationship or not leaving. Many already associate being in that relationship or experiencing that abuse with shame, with guilt. They feel that, again, as I said, with their self-esteem being lowered, they're at that point where they feel like that may be all that they deserve, or that they deserve to be treated this way. So you want to approach it, not in a way where, even though it's out of concern and care, you don't want to approach them being, why are you staying? Why aren't you leaving? Why aren't you getting out? And putting that guilt on them when you don't understand how that feels, and what they're going through. So, approach them in a way where it just shows that you truly want to listen. You are showing concern, so approaching them in the way, just asking, is everything okay with your partner? Allowing them that trust and support, for them to open up to you. And from there, have that open conversation where they see that you are someone that can be trusted, and offer them those resources, that we do have here. If they feel that they need shelter, give them our crisis line number, or, wherever area that they're in, an organization that can help with not only seeking shelter, but seeking that advocacy, so even if they want to talk to somebody about getting a protective order, if it's at that point, or talking to somebody, just for that legal advice, or, counselors they may need to reach out for, things like that. Just offering those resources in a, gentle way and in a way that they know that they're being respected and supported.
Bessie's comment about communicating in a way that they don't feel judged is really behind our annual campaign this year. So our annual campaign through the Caring Place is called Let's Start Talking, because the shame comes from hiding the domestic violence. So that we're trying to break that silence that hides domestic violence. And the reality is that, 1 in 3 high school students is currently experiencing some sort of teen dating violence through their friends, through their own relationships. 1 in 3 teenagers are impacted, and 80% of parents don't realize that that's a problem. So we've got to start talking about these things and bringing it into the light so that people don't feel judged and don't feel ashamed, because it's far, far more common than anyone imagines, particularly because that impression that it's all physical is just not accurate. There's digital control, there's, mental abuse, there's financial abuse, all of those sorts of things. It's not just a physical sort of thing necessarily. There are lots of ways that people are controlled and manipulated.
Has COVID-19 impacted domestic violence data or services available?
Yes, actually, let me get the numbers here. So according to the Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence, Indiana saw a 102% increase in domestic violence-related deaths. So these are actual deaths, not just incidents, but deaths from March 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, compared to the same period the previous year. So ICADV states that the increase can directly be attributed to the COVID pandemic and its resulting isolation, economic stressors, mental health impact, increased alcohol consumption, firearms, and the reduced access to service. Now, we've been very lucky here with the Caring Place because we just completed a huge capital campaign to build a new shelter. So our new shelter is architecturally able to continue to house people safely. We have more rooms, we have more bathrooms, it's a bigger space. And we completed that building project just in time, just several months before the pandemic hit. Our old shelter was an old kind of Victorian multi-story building with few bathrooms, not always functioning. And so we most likely, Madison, would have had to close and not be able to offer safe shelter during the pandemic because we wouldn't have been able to keep people safe from catching COVID. So while the need for shelter is on the increase, as ICADV shows during the pandemic, many shelters across the nation have had to close their doors because they weren't in a format that they could keep staff and clients safe. We very luckily have been able to do that. We've had to lower our census some in order to, we couldn't put strangers together in a room, but we could put whole families in a room, and we have been able to continue to provide service for those who have needed us the most.
Besides safe shelter, what other services are provided to those in need by the Caring Place?
Well, it's kind of been touched on a little bit, but we do provide advocacy in many forms, whether it's legal, victim, and community. So we do go out. Right now, it's mostly Zoom presentations and distributing resources, so that has changed due to COVID as well. But we do, do that outreach for prevention and awareness, as Denise mentioned. We have our legal advocate that will assist with getting protection orders, which is really great for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month as well, to know Indiana is one of those states that teens, whether you're a minor or not, can obtain a protection order. So it's good just to know that and know that there are more options to get out of an abusive relationship safely. Again, Denise touched on financial abuse is a huge form of abuse, especially those that are leaving situations, leaving their home. So we do have our advocates in shelter that will assist with helping our clients become financially self-sufficient again, being able to obtain housing, a car, a job, those things that they need, that they feel that they're stuck leaving a relationship that they may not be able to do that. So it's really nice that we help them in all those areas. Safety planning, we assist with that, whether it's over the phone or with our clients, because, whether you have a child or not, pets, these are all things to consider when you are trying to leave safely and in a manner whether you're seeking safe shelter or trying to be out on your own.
It's really important, Madison, with the financial independence and financial abuse aspects. We're really excited to be partnering with Centier Bank this year and working with their finance and outreach people to provide more resources, more information on that financial self-sufficiency and what does financial coercion or financial abuse look like, because you get stuck in that when you're young before you really realize what's going on, and then it's difficult to get out. So Centier Bank is partnering with us for that. But I also really want to make the point that domestic violence isn't just between a man and a woman. It's not just all intimate partner violence. It is family violence. Sometimes it is blended family violence where a stepchild is taking the brunt of everything in that family. Elder abuse is on the rise with people living, extended families and people having to take care of parents or grandparents or that sort of thing. Did you know that 1 in 10 of those over 60 are experiencing domestic violence, elder abuse. So there are the LGBT community. There are all sorts of demographics. So basically, no one is safe. We have a stereotype of what domestic violence is, but the stereotypes are just a smokescreen. It's any one of us at any time can really, if we're not aware and we're not paying attention, can fall into an unhealthy relationship.
And to piggyback, I'm sorry, I just want to add, especially with talking about Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, this also doesn't just apply to partners, as Denise said. These are friendships, in high school. I personally went through, some toxic friendships, friends that try to control you and, get jealous and angry if you hang out with, other groups of friends or whatever the case is. So we do want, to mention that these are, not only those that are dating, but those that maybe have friends that are either dating to recognize the signs or to realize that, oh, maybe this friendship isn't, a healthy one to keep in my life.
Absolutely. Middle school. Do you remember middle school, Madison? Is that where you realize that suddenly, there's that one friend who you could just never please and everything had to be that friend's way or you were out of the group, right? So it really starts that early. It really does. So one of the services we are working to offer, particularly with the Amanda Forum, is having older, college students or high school students work with, say, middle school students on healthy relationships. We always get told what not to do, right? But we need to know what to do. How do we create healthy relationships with healthy boundaries and communication skills?
Can you explain to listeners what a safety plan is and what are some of the key components to a safety plan?
So they can definitely vary, depending if it is a teen trying to leave an abusive relationship, a wife or husband that's trying to leave a marriage, and get out safely. So there are many components to many different safety plans. Again, as I said, considering, do I have to keep my children safe? How do I get out safely with them? Pets, finances, they're all kind of broken down, into those things. First, asking yourself those questions. What do I need to do here? Who is my support system? Which phone numbers do I have on hand that I can call immediately for support or to help me, leave the situation safely? So again, our advocates can kind of go through that a little more in depth with those that are seeking to get a safety plan. Loveisrespect.org is also a great website that does have an extensive safety plan for teens. So we, give you that link again at the end of the interview. But there are really good resources because every situation does vary. And so there are many, many components, involved depending on what the actual situation is, what the type of abuse is, and things like that.
There are, in education, I think Bessie and I can both attest to incidents where the safety plan might be needed by, say, an 18-year-old in the home who is at odds with parents. And, there have been situations where parents in the middle of winter have taken a teen's, phone, have taken their car keys, and kicked them out of the house, okay, and threatened their pet and all of those sorts of things. So, and this happens to boys, happens to girls. So if there is a discordant relationship in the home, sometimes that senior year before college where things are kind of being held over your head, well, if you don't do this, then we're not going to pay for your college, we're going to take your car, those sorts of things. You're going to want to think of a safety plan. So what would I do? Who could I contact? How could I call somebody? Where would I go at midnight, in the middle of winter if I get kicked out of the house because things just keep escalating? See what I mean? So those things are really important. In addition, Bessie also pointed out that domestic violence isn't always a male perpetrator toward a female. I know personally multiple young men who have been in situations and were almost killed by a female perpetrator in their lives. So it's things that everybody has to be aware of. It's just not that stereotypical battered woman sort of syndrome. That is not an accurate portrayal of what domestic violence is.
And it's also being careful, some people you may not expect to react the way that they do once you break up. Breakup violence is huge as well. So as far as the safety plan, regarding that, you want to make sure that you're always letting somebody know if it is just dire that you need to meet the ex for whatever reason. Someone needs to go with, needs to know about that meeting. It needs to be in public if you are meeting that person alone. And someone needs to know about this meeting. So that's something we really do stress as well with our task force and those that we educate on this topic. Breakup violence is something that you just have to be aware of and know that even if you could never expect it from that person, you don't know how those emotions are running high from the breakup, how they're coping with the breakup, which is why we want to, assist with teaching those skills as well, how to cope with the breakup in a healthy way. But yeah, we need to know and put a safety plan in place. Okay, this person knows that I'm going here to meet with this person, or I'm having my friend go with me. Or as a friend, you need to offer and say, I'm going with you, if you're going to meet your ex. So.
And the truth is, nobody ever thinks their ex is going to hurt them. We all think, oh, they'd never hurt me, because that seems like something that would happen on Dateline, not to us here in Porter County or Lake County or whatever. And so really the best option is never to meet your ex alone. And also the cyber aspect, I think the digital aspect, the social media. Some experts think that violence, proportionally, men do act out violently more than women, proportionally, right? And some experts think that comes from the shame, the shame of a breakup. And so they don't know how to handle that emotion. And so then they become explosive. And think about digitally and social media, if you post immediately that now you're single and, all of this thing, it just really feeds the fire, and so you really want to, during those situations, break up respectfully and, gracefully, and not add fuel to a fire that can then get out of hand.
I know you kind of touched on this before, but what type of advocacy is available for those who reach out to the caring?
So yeah, you can actually call our crisis line at 219-464-2128. And we do have case managers, advocates, and client assistants on hand that will assist you with guiding you towards our legal advocate. So again, obtaining a protection order, whatever it is that you may be seeking out. We have our victim and our community advocates that will, accompany you even if you have court or whatever the case is, and just assisting with those counseling services that you may need from going through, the trauma and abuse that may have gone on. We've discussed a little bit that, this is truly, and it is considered now, a public health crisis, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, because these effects of trauma lead to, as Denise mentioned, substance abuse, depression, anxiety, chronic pain. I mean, there's so many different things that survivors of these types of abuse are obtaining as well, on top of just trying to deal and heal with, what they've been through and how they've been treated. So our advocates are there to help with all of those things and kind of guide you in the right direction, on top of, the safe shelter that's needed. So.
And we partner with other agencies to help channel you where you need to go, whether it's trying to find some rapid rehousing through housing opportunities, or maybe you were able to get out, but you need clothing or you need food for the food bank, until you can get on your feet. Porter Stark, maybe you need some support from Porter Stark Services. So in this region, so many nonprofits do just a wonderful job of working together to try to meet all of the needs of our families, our Hilltop House for childcare, those sorts of things. So our advocates can also help steer people, even if it's not that you need shelter immediately, call our helpline, because we can help you with some of those other aspects that maybe you've gotten out, you're living with family members, but you still need that support. And then we provide ongoing community support as well. So even after you leave shelter, your advocates will continue to check up on you and be there for you as needed.
How could someone in need reach out for advocacy?
You can call our crisis line, 219-464-2128. You can go on our website, www.thecaringplacenwi.org. You can call us here at the administrative office, 219-464-0840. My extension is 100. So I'm here most of the week. You can call, leave a message, and also if anyone is interested in joining the Amanda Forum Task Force, you can also call that number to reach me. Yeah, there's many ways to reach us. Our social media, you can leave messages on our Facebook. We have the Caring Place Facebook and the Amanda Forum, so you can reach us in those ways as well.
Can you tell listeners about our 2021 Let's Start Talking public service campaign to facilitate awareness and prevention of domestic violence?
Absolutely. I'll take that one. We've talked about it a little bit already, but I'll talk about it again. We recently had a donor. We get lots of volunteers and people who donate and want to do projects for the Caring Place. And all the time they tell us that the reason they are so engaged with our mission is because they've experienced some of that themselves. And I know, Madison, are you the sponsor of the Hope Club? Are you the person who put together the Hope Club in Chesterton? Yes. So I'd love to hear more about why you are engaged with our mission as well. But that's why we are creating the Let's Start Talking campaign. There are businessmen who talk about how their employees are impacted. And survivors of domestic violence who are speaking to other people, or survivors of dating violence or sexual assault or those sorts of things. And so we strongly believe that breaking the silence that hides the violence will create better protection and a safer community for all of us. What if we are all more aware of the red flag? What if all of us know where to go to seek help? What if all of us are willing to listen without judgment and support people as they try to move forward? That creates a safer community for all of us. So that's why we're hosting this Let's Start Talking campaign, to bring this issue out into the open and make us all aware of what we can do.
How can the community help to support the Caring Place as an organization and families staying at the Caring Place?
I can take that one. We have folks who do fundraisers and bring in fundraisers. For instance, the Bozak Family Light Show. Every Christmas, that family creates this beautiful Christmas display in their yard, and they take donations. And people come by, they enjoy the light show and the music show, and then they contribute to the Caring Place. And this family's been doing this for years, and every year it seems like they almost double whatever they're bringing in. We have folks who volunteer when COVID-19 is under control, and we can have volunteers. People volunteer to do groups or do crafts with kids or our clients, or to come in and answer phones for us, or come do maintenance on our buildings, on our campus. We have a family that comes every weekend to do odd jobs like putting our gutters back together, or fixing cabinets and things like that. So there's so many ways you can get involved, from monetary contributions, which of course we always need as a nonprofit, to just getting out there and bringing snacks, individual snacks, or donating phones, or whatever that may be. So you can call our number that Bessie already gave, but Advocacy Center number is 219-464-0840 if you have things you'd like to donate or services you'd like to provide, or mail in a donation.
And many people do ask about clothing donations, which we're so appreciative of that when people think of us. But because of space, we do actually suggest that anyone who's looking to donate clothing for our clients to do so at First Presbyterian Resale Shop in Valpo or United Methodist, because they do offer vouchers to our clients when they come in. So for them and their children, they do allow them to get free clothing and shoes as needed. So that's been a really great resource as well.
Moving on to WDSO's segment about Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, can you explain the importance of this month to teenagers and what areas the Caring Place focuses on during the month?
So yes, as we said prior, we do place the focus on healthy relationships. We want to, put that positive spin on this topic because it is a really hard topic to talk about for a lot of people. And we just want to place emphasis on healthy relationships in order to prevent further abuse that may go on. So we do talk about healthy boundaries, consent, conflict resolution skills, those things that can really, allow someone to reevaluate the relationships they may be in and learn how to better themselves further improve their relationships. We, of course, do discuss red flags and things like that so that friends and those that are in these relationships are aware of what may be going on. Because, again, as we said before, with domestic abuse, it's not all physical and bruises. So some think, oh, well, he or she doesn't hit me. It's not that bad, or, I'm not in an abusive relationship. So we will always want to distinguish those things and just educate each other and bring that to awareness and know that, there is help out there to get out of the relationship and that there are healthy aspects of the relationship that you need to look for.
Can you explain to us what the Amanda Forum is and how it came to be created?
Yes. So the Amanda Forum was actually created after Amanda Bach was tragically taken from her ex, actually. So it was due to breakup violence. So the Caring Place and I believe another group, Denise was involved. I didn't come on until later. So Denise, you may have some other details that I may not be aware of, but came together to create this task force, and just really, educate, again, as I said, on healthy relationship skills, healthy coping skills, how to break up safely, to prevent further tragedies such as hers. So that was, I believe, close to a year after. That was in 2011. And I believe the Amanda Forum was created very shortly after, I believe by 2012, 2013. So the task force at that time was made up of high school students to increase that awareness. Denise held conferences and workshops, to just talk about healthy relationships. And we are now, as she said, we are revamping it to be comprised of college students to further that outreach into high schools through our resources. With COVID-19, though, we are trying to think of more virtual ways to gain outreach. So we are in the process of creating our own podcast to just reach as many as we can and focus on those topics that are necessary to educate and raise awareness about.
The Amanda Forum began with an adult task force, an adult teen dating violence task force, but we realized that, as you know, adults just are clueless about the current culture of dating and relationships. So it's really important to us to make sure we have authentic, relevant information, and that's why we created the youth task force for the Amanda.
When is the Amanda Forum held?
Right now, it is actually on Mondays at 4:30 via Zoom. It's the best way to get everyone in the meeting together and be able to have that time together, especially during COVID. So we are meeting via Zoom for now. It is Mondays at 4:30. And as I said earlier, if anybody is interested, you're welcome to email me. It's Bessie, BESSIEN, at thecaringplace.NWI.org. Or you are welcome to contact our Facebook pages or call the office here, 219-464-0840. And my extension is 100. I'd be happy to talk to you, give you the Zoom link if anybody just wants to hop on and see what we're all about and what we're working on, and really move forward and just educate as many people as we can.
And if we can leave your listeners with just any quick tip, it would be that a healthy relationship is one that brings out the best. Okay? It's the one that brings out the best in you, and you're the best person you can be, and you're proud of who you are when you're in that relationship. It's also one in which the people who love you most and know you best aren't worried about you. So if the people who love you have always been there for you, who love you and know you the best, don't like whoever it is you're with, you need to ask yourself why. Why? These people who love me are worried about me. Why is that? Because the quicker you can get out of a relationship like that, the better it is, and the easier it is before you get entrenched in an unhealthy relationship.
How can those interested in the youth task force become involved?
Again, you're welcome to contact me at any of those numbers or email or our social media pages. And I can definitely give further information, give the Zoom link information for now for our meetings. Hopefully, we'll be sharing some podcasts of our own soon. I can easily distribute resources to anybody that may want to at their high schools. For example, with your Hope Club, we'd be more than happy to give resources for that. We have our Art with a Message campaign that we are looking for more artwork as well. So if anybody's interested, we are accepting artwork that, just illustrates a healthy relationship, and we can kind of work with that and see and just give that quick message, whether it's up in businesses or schools, anywhere that somebody just may need that motivation to, learn more or get out of an abusive relationship.
Totally check out the Amanda Forum Facebook page. You'll see posters, you'll have all the information. You go there, you can message us. So the Amanda Forum Facebook page, great way.
What are the main goals of the Youth Task Force and the Amanda Forum?
So we really are just looking to expand that outreach and awareness. We want people to discuss, what they're going through in their relationships. A lot of people that I personally talk to, those that have already been in abusive relationships or experienced some form of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual, any forms of that abuse, they're starting to realize, as Denise said, with the Let's Start Talking, it applies to everyone. This is one of those, thankfully, one of those times that people are starting to talk about this, and it's helping others heal. I kind of always lean back on a Brene Brown quote, how whatever you go through becomes someone else's survival guide. So it's really good to just be open when you're comfortable and talk about this in hopes of helping somebody else, so we can lessen, the statistics, which are just overwhelming right now. Just as domestic abuse is, teen dating violence is 1 in 3 teens are affected by some form of abuse. 1.5 million high school students have experienced some form of abuse. So it's prevalent, and we need to try and lower those numbers and statistics and, just empower people to enter healthy relationships and leave ones that may be unhealthy.
What would you recommend someone trapped in an unhealthy relationship do?
I would definitely suggest that they seek out somebody that they do trust to talk to and kind of work out where a safety plan if needed, how to get out of this relationship. And again, seek outside services if necessary. Again, calling the shelter doesn't mean you're seeking safe shelter necessarily, but you can at least find further resources that can help you cope with it, leave the relationship safely, and things like that.
And just keep reaching out. It's the same thing we used to tell kids with bullying. If you tell somebody and they don't believe you, well, tell somebody else. That person might be having a bad day, right? So reach out again. If you reach out and you don't get the result or no one answers or whatever, just keep reaching out to find that right piece to help you.
What can I do in my everyday life to avoid these relationships or to avoid falling into an unhealthy relationship?
Well, I would say, working on yourself, seeing what makes you truly happy and placing focus on that, making sure that you don't settle. I've had this conversation with Denise and many of the students I've worked with and presented to. You get to that point where, even at my age, you see people getting married and this and that, and you think, oh, well, I need to have a boyfriend or I need to have a girlfriend. And people start to settle. So we want to make sure that we're placing emphasis on that self-confidence and self-esteem so that you realize that you don't deserve less, that you are not going to settle, know your worth, know that you're worthy of a healthy relationship, and that when that time comes, you will find the right person. You may go through unhealthy relationships or relationships that just weren't a good fit, and that's completely okay. It's a learning process, and kind of understand that it's not the end of the world, even though it may feel like it at that time, if something doesn't work out with somebody. Place emphasis on yourself and just know your self-worth.
That is going to wrap things up for this week's Porter County Perspective. This has been Madison Cary, and my guest this week was Denise Cary and Bessie Newkirk of the Caring Place. I really appreciate you joining us, Denise and